Let's therefore bring in two legal eagles to reflect on that. Has the Delhi municipal body actually bypassed the Supreme Court stay? Is it in violation of the law or not? Is Bulldozer Raj in violation of the law? I'm joined now by Aryama Sundaram, Senior Counsel. Also joining me is Colin Gonsalves. We have limited time, gentlemen, because our politicians ran over, but I want to understand from both of you. First, you, Aryama Sundaram, is this a violation of the law? Is it contempt of court? 10:45 order comes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court gives the order that demolition only stops at 1:30.
Rajdeep, there are two questions at once, so let me take one by one. The first is the action itself, the action of the demolition which took place. Now, the fact of the matter is, if it is an illegal construction, if there is encroachment, illegal encroachment, then the natural consequence of that is demolition or ejection. And it is no answer to turn around and say, look here, you have demolished my illegal structure, not somebody else's illegal structure. You cannot plead. When you are a wrongdoer, you cannot plead that action has not been taken against another wrongdoer. Those are two basic principles which we have to understand. But, and this is the big but, the caveat, it cannot be done without procedure of law being followed. There has to be a notice, an opportunity given, and thereafter a further decision on it, where a person also has a right to appeal. But even so, at least that first stage of natural justice, of
but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. There was the Kangana Ranaut case, Mr. Aryama Sundaram, you will recall, in Mumbai. There also the Shiv Sena-led government went ahead with her demolition, even while the matter was being argued in the High Court. So the question arises, are municipal authorities in a way taking their signals from their political masters and doing demolitions based on whether it is politically viable to do one or not?
Look, the fact is the timing of this is such that seems to be the impression given. But what really astounded me today was when I heard the mayor give an answer to an English channel where he was questioned about the notice. And he actually turned around and said, oh, notice is not, I don't think notice is required. They don't need notice when they're doing these kind of encroachments. And it shocked me that basic law was not known or understood, even by the MCD officials. Now, the point of the matter is, you are asking a political question. You had a great political debate on it. I'm not entering politics of it. The timing of it naturally gives rise to an inference that the two could be connected. Okay. And there I will drop it at that. But what I do want to point out is that whatever it is, due process has to be followed, procedure of law, natural justice has to be followed. Without it, it cannot be done. Now, as to your second question, the question is, when the status quo order was passed by the Supreme Court, when was it communicated? Question number one. Question number two, how soon after it was communicated was that duly communicated to people at the ground level? Those two questions will become paramount to decide as to whether there has been a deliberate and willful disobedience of the order, or it was that the communication took a certain amount of time.
I just very quickly, Mr. Sundaram.
Down to the grassroots was done.
No, Mr. Sundaram, I want to understand, before I go to Colin Gonsalves, when you say communication, does that have to be written and received by the authorities?
The communication has to, in some manner, be informed to them. If the Supreme Court registry itself had informed them even through email or informed them even through, I would say, in a situation like this, even by a telephone call, that would have been sufficient communication.
Okay. Let me bring in Colin Gonsalves at this point. Mr. Gonsalves, how do you see this? Do you believe that this is a dangerous precedent that has been set? As I said, we've seen even in Mumbai, with the Kangana Ranaut case, the government seemed to go ahead with the demolition even as the matter was being argued in the courts.
Let me deal with what Sundaram said as his understanding of what the rights of the poor are first. It's a very obnoxious point of view. It says if you're poor and you're squatting in a slum, you deserve the bulldozer because you're illegal. But that's not what the Supreme Court has said 20 times. Everyone has a right to housing under Article 21, the right to life. If you're a slum and you've been there for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, the state must have a scheme to regularize those slum dwellers. They have a right to housing. If that land is needed for a public purpose, then the state is duty bound to shift them to a nearby place and rehabilitate them. Therefore, do poor people have a right to life and therefore a right to housing? Yes, they do. Is it that just because you're poor and you're living in a slum for 20 years, as Sundaram will proudly tell you, they deserve eating and they deserve
Colin, I'm sorry, please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. This is very wrong.
It is a
of you.
foul. Wait, Mr. Sundaram. You enunciated a very foul, anti-poor attitude towards housing rights.
No, 1 minute.
Change your attitude.
No, 1 minute. Colin
Particularly when you're on public
Gonzalez, I think he was
you must
referring
not
to...
give a wrong
he was referring
The
to
poor,
illegal encroachments.
Just because they are
Illegal
squatting on
constructions,
public land,
illegal
because they
encroachments.
have no
Certainly
other
not slum
alternative.
dwellers. Please,
Serve the
slum dwellers
bulldozer.
are protected.
And
I'm
that
the first
attitude
to
is like
believe
South
they should be
African.
protected.
Aryama,
Don't
just a minute.
misinterpret what I
Aryama,
said.
if you
Sorry.
cross-talk, Colin Gonzalez, the point is whether they are slum dwellers, whether they live in a plush building, an illegal encroachment has to follow due process. I think that's the point that was being made by Mr. Sundaram. You want to
But
respond
what
to
is
that?
due process? What is due process?
Yeah,
Due
he says it was
process
not
is
followed here.
Follow
He
the
says it was
Supreme
not
Court
followed here.
order, regularize the slum or rehabilitate, not the bulldozer. Bulldozer is not due process. Bulldozer is breaking the law regarding the right to the poor to housing. Not due process at all.
So you're saying that a bulldozer cannot ab initio in any circumstances demolish a house without providing alternate accommodation?
Yes, that's the law. The Supreme Court has said it many times.
In which
When
case?
the poor people are settled on slums, please don't take them as encroachers. Do not use the word encroachers because they have no other place to go. They are there by necessity, otherwise they will die. Therefore, the state is duty bound to settle them, improve their slum, regularize their slum, or rehabilitate them. The bulldozer is a totally unconstitutional and unlawful activity of the state when it comes to poor people.
Okay.
If you have some mafia group taking over land, the bulldozer is the rule. But not poor people who've been there, settled there because they have no other place to go. And if they don't stay there, they will die. That's the reason why Supreme Court in 10 judgments protected the poor and said they too have a right to housing.
Very interesting arguments being made by our lawyers. In a way, maybe we should have reversed the order, got our lawyers first because they give us the wider perspective. Politicians get caught in their tutu meme. Either way, Aryama Sundaram, Colin Gonzalez, we will keep carrying forward these debates, I'm sure, on Bulldozer Raj. At the end of the day, there is the constitution of the country. There is due process. Unless that due process is followed, we will enter a stage where clearly we are entering a sense of urban anomie or normlessness. This isn't to do with one government or the other. It's got to do with every government in this country. It must follow the due process of law. In this instance, there's a serious question mark now whether that due process was followed. The Supreme Court will be hearing the matter once again tomorrow. Aryama Sundaram, Colin Gonzalez, thank you very much for joining me.